Good morning.
Morning.
Welcome to the nation's capital and Government Video Expo and the National Drone Show. It's very good to see you. It's an exciting and challenging time to be a video professional. I'm Paul McLean with Nube, your show host. This is the Government Video Theater, where we have a full day of compelling speakers and topics today. And you can find them listed on this sheet at a glance at any time, which we have scattered about the seats, and also on page 6 of your show guide. Be aware as well of the National Drone Show Theater, where some sessions take place. That's at the opposite corner of the hall. On this stage today, we'll have sessions about shooting in 4K, LED studio lighting, digital challenges at C-SPAN, video in combat conditions, and much more. And I want to remind everybody that at 5:45, we have our famous prize drawings with some really cool stuff. You got a raffle ticket at check-in that looks like this, or you can pick one up at that booth right outside the theater area there. Just fill it out and return it, but you must be present to win. It's at 5:45 here, and those prizes are really cool. I'm sorry that I'm not qualified to participate. So let's dive right into some fun and interesting stuff. It's time for Rise of the Drones. It's so exciting what we can do today with these professional video tools, and we're just really getting started. So now I'd like to introduce the Vice President of TIVA, the Television, Internet, and Video Association of DC. Please welcome Todd Clark.
Thank you very much, Paul. I'm going to go ahead and try to speak to everybody in the hall this morning, not just this audience, even though I've got a little bit of scratchy throat. My name is Todd Clark, and I am the Vice President of TIVA, Television, Internet, Video Association. I'm also the Government Liaison and the Chair of the Peer Awards. I really want to welcome everyone here this morning. I feel like this is the first session. We're setting the benchmark. We're getting the information out there. And I really have an incredible panel of guests to talk us through some of the topics today. TIVA, as many of you know, is a membership organization association. We're looking for new members today, half off registration for that. Our booth is 525 over there in the corner. And you know where we are because we're just down the street from Hover, which is at booth 533. So check us out. There's all kinds of information over there, but let's get started. What I wanted to do today was give enough time for people to ask some questions so we have an exchange of dialogue. And just to get a sense of who our audience is, I'm going to ask you 3 questions. Go ahead and raise your hand if you are affirming. Are you currently now a drone user? Okay. Are you a drone user in DC? Okay, you're illegal. Okay, all right. Get that figured out right off the bat. Okay. How many folks are considering getting into the drone user business? Seriously considering it, okay? And how many folks want to figure out who they should hire to run and get their drone footage? Okay, sort of a mix, that's great. So let's get an idea of who our experts are today. Let's begin down at the end with Brian, and I want to thank Brian for his footage that was shot in 2016 up until about 2 weeks ago. So thank you very much for that. So Brian Kelly.
Thanks so much. Todd asked us to do a quick introduction and my experience getting into drones. I'm a former Discovery production executive, and back in 2007 actually, I was introduced to the concept of using drones for aerial cinematography through a company out in LA who we were working with on a production for Discovery. And back then they were using single prop collective pitch remote control helicopters. You know, it was a great idea, but the end result, the footage, really was a good idea that the technology just wasn't there yet. I left Discovery back in 2009, started my company, Single Mode Media, and we were working on a project for a travel channel, and we decided to buy our first drone. And dailies went in and we were showing some stuff to travel, and about a day later I got a call from them asking if we were interested in doing hire outs. And as a production company, you know, working as a for hire, basically freelance, it really wasn't in our business plan, but we decided to say yes. And back then nobody was doing drones, so as a result, our phone just kind of rang off the hook for the next 4 years. And so we got in early as operators and have been kind of riding the wave of the effectiveness of the technology.
So one question, Brian, you got to explain single malt or malt. What's going on with that?
When I was talking to a buddy of mine about leaving Discovery, I was at a bar right down the street, and he was drinking a glass single malt scotch. And what's in a name? We're talking about a name for our company. And he spit out single malt media, so that was the genesis of it.
Well, I'll drink to that. Okay. Mike Cibola.
Hey, I'm Mike Cibola. I'm producer director at FDA Food and Drug Administration. I'm also the lead drone operator and teacher there. We are relatively new in the drone world. I'm a producer. I guess I've been a producer for 20-some years in the DC area. We decided about a year and a half ago that we would foray into the drone business, the drone area. FDA Food and Drug FDA Studios is the main production entity for the Food and Drug Administration. We're not required. Centers aren't required to use us. They can still go outside, but we do the majority of the work for FDA. A year and a half ago, they decided to do that. We applied for the 333 and bought the Phantom, the Aspire, and ultimately the Free Fly Alta. Started training. Actually, brought Brian in to consult and on our platforms and our training procedures. He trained me for the last year and a half. We were waiting for our 333 extension. They canceled that when the Part 107 was brought out and told us to reapply. So we have just recently, I was certified with my Part 107. I'm a private pilot, so I was able to do it relatively easily for the Part 107 certification. But we're just getting up and running. There are a lot of complications. Nothing as most of these guys probably know, and anybody else who's flying drones and acquiring drones, nothing is as easy as it seems at first, especially once you get into the hexcopters. It's rather complicated. There are a lot of moving parts, and it's, I think, my best part of advice is to make sure you know who your provider is when you buy your drone, that they're going to have good customer support. I don't know how many times we were on the phone with quadcopter. It was actually in quadcopter in Montana. They answered the phone. They were there they answered our questions right away and helped tremendously because we're in the field trying to figure this thing out. Something goes wrong. We don't have a part. We're trying to configure things that we thought were already configured. There's a steep learning curve. So service is number one, and I think the second thing is a management platform. We have 4 pilots. 3 besides myself that are training at the moment, and we are using Skyward.io as our management platform. It keeps track of all of your drones, your maintenance, your batteries, pilot hours, any problems. It's very affordable. It's $300 a year for the one that we use. They have various levels. So those are my two takeaways in general.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. Terry and Belinda Kilby.
Hi, I'm Terry Kilby.
I'm Belinda Kilby.
We have a company together called Elevated Element. We're based out of Baltimore, just outside of Baltimore in Owens Mills. We kind of got started on this in a slightly different way than most people probably. My background is in software engineering, and I dabble a little bit in mechanical engineering. I've been an RC enthusiast my whole life. So I grew up throughout the 80s and 90s building RC cars, planes, helicopters, things of that nature. In 2009, Belinda and I were merging our lives together. We were looking for something to do together. She's been an artist for her entire life, and we put a camera on one of my early single rotor collective pitch helicopters, and the images looked horrible, but she saw some potential.
Yeah, that's right. The bird's eye perspective, there's really, it's an important perspective throughout many important art movements throughout history. And so as soon as I saw that, then I knew that we had to carry a better camera somehow. And about that time, that's when the first generation GoPro was coming out. So Terry was building, and the GoPro, and then all of the sensors from the smartphone. It was a perfect storm for the civilian unmanned aerial phenomenon to explode. And so we really just tried to stick right along with every single advancement in the technology and evolve along with it to where we are today.
Since those early days, we've gone on to author 2 different books on the topic. The first ever photo book, shot entirely with UAV, called Drone Art Baltimore. It showcases our lovely hometown of Baltimore, Maryland, as well as a few outlying areas around the state. And more recently, we published Make, Getting Started with Drones, where we're working with Maker Media, publishers of Make Magazine. And we've helped a few hundred people at this point learn about the principles of flight, build their own aircraft, and actually get up into the air through those efforts with that book.
Great, thank you. Stuart and Nathaniel Showalter.
Yes, so we have started a company called Hover Solutions, which provides aerial imaging of various sorts for people. So if you don't want to bother with learning how to get a drone, or crashing it into a wall, or dumping it in a tree or a lake, or dealing with insurance or FAA regulations and all of that, then give us a call and we'll give you your aerial imaging for you, safely and legally, that kind of thing. Now, my background is very different from everybody else's in that I did nonprofit work in West Africa. My wife and I did for 30 years. Nathaniel grew up there in Burkina Faso in West Africa. The work that we did took us out to remote locations quite often, and for 30 years we've been learning new technology ourselves without anybody teaching us, just figuring stuff out for ourselves, whether it be computers or cell phones or cameras or whatever. So when it came time to finish that work up and start something else in life, I looked around and I said, you know, this drone technology is a technological revolution. It feels, in drones, it feels like 1983 or 1984 with computers. And that there's a whole bunch of stuff that's flooding the market now that provides us with technology to do stuff that we could never do before. And so I think it's really a genuine technological revolution that's occurring, and so we thought, let's jump in and be a part of it. So Daniel and I together started working together about 18 months ago, and bought our first drones, crashed them, bought other drones, learned how to operate them better. Eventually we applied for a 333 exemption and got that last February. So we've been operating professionally since March, doing a whole range of stuff. Come to our booth at booth number 533 and you'll see some of the range of the stuff that we've been able to do. Nathaniel got his pilot's license specifically so that we could fly under Section 333. Now, since the Part 107 rules have come out in August, I have a Part 107 remote pilot certificate as well. So I don't know.
Just my background, straight out of college, I went into telecommunications, spent about 5 years in telecommunications, and learned a lot about, mostly about personnel and project management from that, which is why I eventually came on board as the chief of operations for this company. So it sounds great until you realize there's 3 of us, but I'm the chief of operations, but I don't have any underlings. And after that, I went into home remodeling, and very easily, it was very easy to see where you could use drones in that kind of thing, especially when you buy the house, flip it, and then attempt to sell it. It helps if you have some media to go with that. But ended up putting on a lot of different hats, even if only in very little in some cases. You end up getting your MSHA certification and your, of course, pilot's license. By the way, my drone hours passed my manned aircraft hours sometime in late October, so I now have more time at the sticks than I do at the yoke. But we'll see. Every 2 months I go and take a couple of flights to try to keep up. Let's see. It's been a lot of fun. It certainly has been a bit of a departure from. It certainly wasn't anything I expected to get into as far as 3 years ago, 2 years ago. But I have enjoyed pretty much every moment of it. It has become I started making YouTube videos probably back in about 2009. Nothing special. Don't go looking for my channel. You won't find anything worth sharing. But it was for my own benefit, and I kind of got to understand how timing works, how editing works, how you need to begin a composition, how you need to shoot something in order to create a final product that's watchable. And that was really my introduction to video. And since then I've gotten a little bit more into photography too, although I never ended up having enough money to disposable income to buy a proper DSLR. So for me, drones was an introduction to aeronautics, an introduction to a whole different type of project management, an introduction to the type of legal understandings that you have to have as a pilot in order to conduct yourself safely and legally. And then, of course, the introduction to all the technical things like what the heck is a camera aperture? What does that F stand for? What do you mean I need an ND filter today? These are all things that we learned and thankfully learned fairly quickly in order to develop the product that we now offer to our customers as a company.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Brian, I want to start with you. I mean, the industry has matured enough where we're at a point where we can talk about, in the States anyway, some lessons learned, good relationships that have been established with the FAA and some of the other governing agencies. So I guess I want to start off, what makes for a realistic definition of a proper, good drone operator? What do they need to have? What should you be looking for legally, and then in terms of approach, using a drone in a project? And hold that mic really closely.
Well, of course, it starts with where we started was a 333 exemption, and it's either that, which the FAA was
maybe define those two. What is that, and what is a 107? What's happened? What's the difference?
Our 333 is good until 2017, when the FAA was evaluating the future of drones being legalized and kind of commercially available within the United States. They immediately set out to say, well, okay, you needed a pilot's license, either recreational or up. Or it was experimental or up, which is experimental, I think, is the lowest level, and that was the primary requirements. You had to have a pretty deep knowledge of aviation in order to get into it, to do it legally. And there was, in those first few years, a lot of people saying, well, it's kind of like the Wild West. It's, these are not regulations; they are recommendations. And I think even when we first got into it, we were like, well, geez, we don't need government regulation. But within a couple of years, it dawned on us that there were a lot of operators out there that were kind of operating on the fringe, and that regulation was actually a good thing. So we got into it. We got our 333 exemption. The big difference between the 333 and the Part 107 is you no longer need to have a pilot's license in order to be an operator. You have to pass a qualification or an aircraft knowledge test and a number of things. I'm going to let Mike speak to that because Mike just passed his. We hold our 333 until the end of next year when that expires, and then we'll have to get the 107. So that's primarily it. It was the pilot's license was the crux of it all.
Okay, Mike, why don't you pick up on that? What does 107 do, and what does it allow, and how do you obtain one?
Well, Part 107 it refers to the statute that the 333 exemption used to exempt you from. It basically allows you, it's an actual pilot certificate for a remote piloted vehicle. It allows you to fly drones commercially, and that's what we're talking about here, because there is another level which we're not really touching on, which is the recreational use of drones, which is not commercial. If you use your drone to make money or in any kind of trade, then it is considered commercial use, and you need a Part 107 or a 333 exemption. The difference between while you don't need a pilot's license to get a 107 certificate, it is much easier because they assume that you know the background aviation knowledge and safety information from the pilot's license. And I have to say that is true. I found that to be true, that if you come at it from Nathaniel will probably speak to this, if you come at it from a pilot's perspective, you're already grounded in the safety aspects of aviation. You know how important it is when you have something up in the air, even if you're not in the machine, that how important safety is. And you're used to all the checks and rechecks that are necessary for flying an actual manned airplane, which are pretty, I don't want to say extensive, but there are steps that you take every time you take an airplane out. There are specific steps when you get in the airplane, when you start the airplane, when you take off, when you land, when you fly, and there are checklists that you go through. And the same thing needs to be true for even the simplest drone, even with a Phantom, where people consider it very easy to fly. Yeah, it's easy to fly, it's easy to acquire, it's relatively cheap. But you have to come at it from a safety perspective. You need to develop a set of standards and a set of operating procedures that allow you to be safe and allow you to operate safely and get the shots you need. There are a lot of producers out there who think, oh, I can let's just go out and get a shot. I know when we first started standing up our joint operations at the FDA, that's what we're still working through that now, is the assumption that, okay, I got to shoot, can you just bring the drone along and we'll get a couple of drone shots. Well, our operations manual, which Brian helped us to develop, which actually grew out of the 333 exemption, when you applied for the 333, there was an inordinate amount of paperwork you had to go through. You had to file an operating manual, which was, I don't know how many pages it was, probably 30, 40 pages long, which outlined every step you did, every contingency. And we found that it was a very helpful tool for us to get grounded in what we were going into, but it was also very helpful in educating us into what we actually need to do and carry forward. And now what it's developed into, we have planning sessions, in advance of the shoot. We find out, we actually have a booking procedure. We have procedures that for planning the flight. We actually go in, look at the airspace on the map. First of all, make sure that it's legal to fly. We go in, we plan it on a map. We plan out our flights, our mission, we call it. Our actual flights and what we're going to. If we can, we actually make a site survey in person and look at any obstacles there, and then we come back and we revise the plan. And then once we get in the field, the communication is very, very important between the pilot and the camera operator. In most cases, when you're doing the two-person operation, and then the spotter, which we also like to use. So it's. I'm not sure I answered your question, but it's a very the Part 107. While it has helped the industry tremendously by allowing other people to get into it. A lot of people get into it who weren't into it before. I think that it's still. If you're going for that, you still have to look at it as a very serious thing that you're getting into. And it's more than just throwing a joint up in the air and getting a couple of shots.
So Terry and Belinda, I wonder if you could pick up on that. And you've talked about a couple of creative uses for drones that maybe people were surprised to hear about, the photo book and whatnot. If you could sort of pick up on that, we've established there's a legal framework within which to safely operate that's both necessary and it's good for the industry. But let's talk a little bit more in terms of the creative use. What are some exciting ways people are using drones now and might be using them down the line?
Sure. Just one thing to quickly add on to what the previous gentlemen were saying. While there is this framework, we do have, we've had the 333 in place for a couple of years now. We've more recently this year we acquired the 107. Those efforts are not all-inclusive. They do fall short. I don't want there to be any mistakes about that. When you finish your 107 certificate, there's nothing at all that has taught you how to actually fly a drone. You know where to, you know how to identify 12 different types of fog, you know how to read weather reports, but there is literally not a single thing that teaches you how to pick up a controller, fly this thing around and do the operations that you're looking for. So while you may be looking for an operator and you may find one that has a 107, that is absolutely zero guarantee that they still, on top of the regulations, know how to actually execute the plans that you might be looking to have flown, those types of missions.
And heaven forbid if something were to go wrong as well.
Yeah.
It just means they've taken the test and passed it.
Yeah, it
That's all
simply
means.
means that they've taken the test. If you want to draw an analogy there to your driver's license, it's the same as taking the written test, but not the practical test where you actually get behind the wheel. That's really what we're talking about here. That being said, though, I think that there is a lot of room for this to be used simply as a tool. When we look at our unmanned systems, we look at them as a tool to continue other types of work that we've done. One thing that we're doing right now is we merge a lot of CG with our aerial data, and so in essence we're working with developers in the Baltimore, Maryland area, for one example, to show what their 270-acre redevelopment project is going to look like when it's done. We can actually take their models and intersect it into our aerial video. We storyboard it and shoot it as if all those buildings are actually there, but then we go out and then superimpose those afterwards with 3D animation. There's a number of different things that.
What Terry was talking about, I kind of think of it as time travel, being able to travel time using technology. A lot of emerging technologies are coming together, and I think that's where the most exciting stuff is happening. For example, like he said, we can take a look at what a development project will look like 6 years down the road by overlaying animated motion tracked architectural renderings on top of aerial video, but we can also do a 3D scan of an archaeological site and then do a 3D model of what the structure once looked like, or take a dilapidated historical structure and then be able to basically remodel it, renovate it digitally, and show potential investors or enthusiasts in history or planning to what is possible. So there's a lot of creativity, there's a lot of art, but then there's a lot of practical purposes, of course.
So my question is, it seems like the conversation is steered toward industrial utilitarian use. Is there no use for a drone in a 48-hour film festival or creative expression? I mean, is this still a tool for a creative storytelling approach?
Not if it's the DC 48-hour film.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think there's still a lot of, and in fact, I think that's one of the few areas where we probably won't see automation take over. The mapping and things of that nature, that's an automated flight. If you can circle an area on Google Maps, then you can pretty much execute that plan. But that precision flight that's going to capture that composition exactly the way you want it, that's always going to be a human-held skill set that's going to be very hard to replace.
Brian?
Well, I'll say from our perspective, I've been in television film production for 30 years. So when I came into this, I came in as a RC hobbyist with an aviation background, but as a filmmaker. So it was all about the perspective and then composing the shot. So 95% of our business is television, commercial cinematography, and film. So while we're based in this area, we've shot as far west as Guam and Saipan, all over South America. We've shot in Europe, and I think there's only maybe 2 or 3 states in the United States that we have not shot in. So it's been a pretty robust run for us. Competition is starting to eat into that. So we started this using drones for our own productions. We kind of accidentally got into the services side of things, which was something that, as I said in my opening, it really wasn't where we wanted to be. But we had to recognize it as a true business opportunity once we saw the growth of the market. So television film is we get a lot of calls for that.
So is a drone still a drone if it can lift enough weight to carry a camera person who's holding a camera? Is that a redundancy? What is that?
That would be man flight. So yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? I know we have to wrap up pretty soon. A couple in the front right here.
I'm just curious about the limitations interacting with actors.
Limitations interacting with actors.
Our 333 exemption has a whole clause on what we call participating personnel. So as long as they've signed a release, and it all comes down to the director and the operator kind of getting together. When we go into that environment, it's an absolute. When we talk to the director, they bring us in. We work for HBO, we work for feature films. We say it's our decision how close we will get, and it's really up to the operator. So having said that, you know, if we're on top of somebody or getting pretty close, and you saw in some of the footage, if it's a vehicle, you know, it's a lot easier to deal with. But it really comes down to the discrimination of the operator, the talent of the operator, within reason. I mean, you're not going to be flying these things 2 feet away from people. But some of the things that we use, like the Alta, the DJI platforms that have the camera mounted on the bottom, you know, you can get pretty close by flying by somebody. But again, you know, you're looking for a specific shot. In the 30 years I've been doing this, we've rented helicopters on every inhabited continent in the world. And so when these platforms came along, we saw it as an opportunity for filmmaking that was unprecedented. It was, you know, it was going to have, we predicted it was going to have a higher, you know, bigger impact than HDTV. And it really has. I mean, it is, it's used everywhere in the world now. And, you know, these industrial applications, and it's branching off into so many areas. It's an amazing technology.
So we're going to wrap up in just a few minutes. I have time for at least one more question, but I want to remind people to visit the booth, 525. All of our panelists will be over there right after this to answer and pick up on any conversations we've started here for a few minutes. So let's get one more question over here, and then we can wrap it up.
I've got an insurance question for you. What's the dollar amount and who carries it? Is it the operator or the production company?
Typically, it's the operator for us. We have been able to cover at a minimum of $3 million in liability coverage. That's kind of like, we did some stuff up in Baltimore City. They required $3 million. We are right now talking to Fox Entertainment. They want $5 million. So it's really, you know, it comes down, it's dictated down to us what any end user is going to need, because we have to sign a letter of subjugation. So our policy takes over in most cases, and the production company's policy is secondary to ours, and that's pretty typical. So you're taking on the liability as well.
Okay. So I want to go ahead and thank Rodney Mitchell, who's in the front row here, and put this panel together. Rodney from TIVA board. And I'm going to see how good you guys are in understanding time. So I want you to give us 15 seconds statement on your best advice, words of wisdom. The rise of the drones means what? Nathaniel.
Well, you have to start with me. Best advice would be make sure that you know what you're doing. I mean,
make sure you know what you're doing. That's your 15 seconds.
Out there, read it all.
Stuart.
Practice, and be aware of the laws and the safety issues. They're very, very important.
Do not rely on automated flight. Flight simulator is a good thing to have in the winter.
Yeah, start small and work your way up. Turn that GPS off and learn how to fly it manually, because one day it will fail on you and you will need to know how to fly it yourself.
Make sure you know that it's just another tool. It's not replacing what we have today. These things have their places, and people forget. They think, oh, I'm just going to shoot the whole thing on a drone. Why can't we do a drone? Well, if it's not adding to your production, maybe you don't need a drone on a shot.
I would say that you know, we're going through a very tenuous but friendly regulatory environment right now. So anybody thinking about being a drone operator, don't be that guy that lands a drone on the White House lawn and mess it up for everybody.
Thank you, panelists. Give them a hand. The conversation continues at booth 525. Thank you all for joining TIVA this morning for Rise of the Drone.
With the Baltimore.